Welcome to CS Talk. In our CS Talk series dealing with the responsibilities of key players in clinical research, we have spoken about the responsibilities of the competent authorities and the ethics committees. In this video, we shall be presenting to our viewers an insight into the processes and activities at the clinical trial sites where the trials are actually conducted. We are going to be discussing about the key responsibilities at the trial sites and site staff that shoulder these responsibilities. This time, we will be talking about the investigators with emphasis on the principal investigator, as referred to as PI most of the time. Who is the PI? What are the minimum qualifications of a PI? What are the functions and responsibilities of a PIs? These are things we'll be talking about. And lastly, we are going to also share some personal experiences as well as offer some tips for a successful working relationship with a PI at the sites. Now, a general recap for those who are not familiar with what a clinical trial is. Clinical trials are studies involving humans. These persons are referred to as patients or trial subjects. Clinical trials are designed under sound scientific considerations and must be in conformity with widely accepted ethical standards. The key purpose of a clinical trial may be directed at questions of causation, prevention, early detection, or treatment of a disease. Now, who is a PI? The principal investigator, commonly called the PI, is a person who is responsible for conducting clinical trial at the trial sites. This could be an hospital. It could also be a private practice. Please be aware there are principal investigators at research institutions performing fundamental research and not clinical research. These PIs are not necessarily physicians. The PI is responsible for any trial-related task performed at a trial site. Clinical trial PIs are mostly physicians. They could also be dentists, depending on the indication in question. Now, what is the minimum PI qualification? With reference to ICH-GCP, the qualification of a PI is demonstrated in three distinctive areas. A PI should be qualified by 1. Education, 2. Training, and 3. Relevant experience. In addition to the qualification spectrum above, please always refer to other minor additions that may be required by the applicable national regulatory authority. Now, what are the functions and responsibilities of a PI? For the purpose of clarity, we will group these into 3 sections. The first section will be before trial-related patient treatment commences. The second section will be during the trial itself. And the third section will be after trial-related patient treatment has ended, and so with the trial itself. Now we take it one after the other. So the first one, before trial commences. The PI ascertain that adequate resources and patient population are available. Now, patient population, recruitment within recruitment period should be guaranteed. Also, basic infrastructure, including necessary equipment, should be available. Of course, time to conduct and complete the trial is of essence. And lastly, adequate number of qualified staff and adequate facility for the foreseeable duration of the trial should be guaranteed. Now, required approval should have been obtained from the competent authority and the ethics committee. Before initiating a trial at a site, the PI or institution should ensure that there is a written and dated approval and favorable opinion for 1. the trial protocol, 2. the informed consent form and subsequent updates to this particular document, 3. the subject recruitment plan and subject recruitment procedures like advertisement, and any other written information that is to be provided to the subject. Now we go to the during the trial section. Number 1, patient consent must be obtained. The PI is responsible for ensuring that all potential patients are informed about the trial risk, benefits, and their right to withdraw at any stage of the trial without having to give any explanation for their actions. Now, before patient consent may be obtained, the investigator or a person designated by the investigator, in Germany this must be a physician, in other countries like the United States, a qualified nurse can be delegated to assume this responsibility, should provide the subject or the subject's legally acceptable representative sufficient time and opportunity to inquire about details of the trial and to decide whether or not to participate in the trial. All arising questions about the trial should be answered to the satisfaction of the subject or the subject's legally acceptable representative. Furthermore, the PI should ensure that the consent process is well documented, in accordance to applicable regulatory requirements, of course, and should adhere to ICH-GCP and other ethical principles that have their origin in the Declaration of Helsinki. It is recommended, however, that the investigator inform the subject's primary physician, it could be a general practitioner, about the subject's participation in the trial if the subject agrees to this. In some trials, this is mandatory, hence it is included in the inclusion criteria of the informed consent. The PI should inform patients or safety updates and reconsent patients when this is necessary. Now 2. The PI is responsible for the medical care of the trial subject. During the subject's participation in a trial, the PI should ensure that adequate medical care is provided to the subject for any adverse events, including clinically significant laboratory values and other trial-related occurrences. 3. The PI must provide update to EC as applicable. During the trial, the PI should ensure that updates are provided to the Ethics Committee for review and approval. The PI must ensure that safety occurrences such as adverse events, SUSAs, which are the suspected unexpected serious adverse reactions, annual reports, protocol deviation, and death are reported as stipulated by the protocol, clinical trial agreement with sponsor, national and local requirement, and other applicable guidelines. 4. Compliance with protocol. The PI is responsible for conducting the trial in compliance with the approved protocol and sponsors SOP as applicable. The investigator or institution and the sponsor should sign a protocol and clinical trial agreement to confirm this protocol agreement. The PI is responsible for documenting and explaining any deviation from the approved protocol. 5. IMP application and management. The PI is responsible for IMP management at the trial site. These include reception, documentation, dispensation, accountability, return or on-site destruction of this IMP. The investigator should ensure that the IMP is used only in accordance with the approved protocol. Where allowed, and this is often the case, the PI may assign some of the trial responsibility, like the IMP accountability, to an appropriate pharmacy or other appropriately qualified persons. 6. SOX data documentation and maintenance. The PI is responsible for ensuring all collected data are correct. The PI should ensure that source data and patient records are kept with restricted access to only duly delegated persons. The PI should ensure that the mentioned documents above are available to authorized persons, including the CRA, auditors, and inspectors. The PI should ensure that the trial site documentation practices are ACOA Plus conform. Now, what does ACOA stands for? ACOA stands for A for attributable, L for legible, C for contemporaneous, O for original, and A for accurate. Now, the original ACOA principles have since been updated to ACOA Plus. The original principles remain with 4 additions, which are complete, consistent, enduring, and available. 7. The PI and institution are responsible for any vendor they contract. If the PI or institution procures the services of any individual or party to perform trial-related duties and functions, the PI or institution should ensure this individual or party is qualified to perform those trial-related duties and functions and should implement standard procedures to ensure the integrity of the trial-related duties, function performed, and any data generated. Now we come to the after the trial end section. After the trial ends, the PI is responsible for ensuring that study binders and records are retained at the end of the trial in accordance to GCP guidelines, national guidelines, and contractual agreements with the sponsor regarding record retention. At this point, we are going to give you some experiences and tips that we have acquired over the years with our engagement with clinical trial sites and PIs. We are going to present a few experiences about how PIs are meeting their responsibilities at the trial sites that we have worked in. Now, how involved are PIs in trials? What you want to avoid are PIs who delegate all responsibilities and are practically not actively involved in the trial. PI involvement is demonstrated in many areas, ranging from meeting patients personally or just reviewing medical reports and data. Depending on whether a study is being conducted in a private practice or an institutional site, I have seen different degrees of PI involvement with regards to the size of the study team, and the indication, of course, in question. In general, I have seen PIs who are very active and those that are moderately involved but still have oversights. I have seen those that are present and personally attend to every patient. Again, this is depending on many factors, including the size of the team and the study conducted, whether in practice or in an institutional site. Now, PI availability. Due to PI's busy schedule, PI availability can be a critical issue during a trial. Most sponsors require that CRAs meet with PIs at least every second monitoring visit to discuss study-related issues. Now, how do we provide the best services for the sponsor and the sites in our own experience? We are going to give you some useful tips to keep in mind. Despite the busy schedule of PIs, they should be available to study-related discussions and to receive update trainings during monitoring visits. The most crucial tip I would like to share with my colleagues is planning, preparation, and knowing your sites. Sometimes the PI will come to you during your visit. Sometimes you can only meet with the PI after an appointment. Should this be the case, please ensure that you arrange an appointment well ahead of time. Before meeting with the PI, make sure you are well prepared and that you have noted down all what you want to discuss with the PI. PIs are very busy people. They don't have time to wait for you to organize yourself before them. If there are documents to be reviewed and signed, ensure you have the documents ready and organized to save time. At the start of your visit, ask the study coordinator or secretary whether there is any change to the scheduled appointment with the PI. This helps you to be prepared in case the PI is coming to see you earlier or later. Check availability and possibility for phone calls should it be impossible to see the PI on site. Now we have come to the end of this video. Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe below so that you are immediately notified of new videos. If you are a physician interested in the role of a PI, please do consider taking a GCP course. Please watch out for our next videos in this series where we will be dealing with other members of the site staff and trial personnel, including the study coordinator, the study nurse, the pharmacy, sponsors, and monitors. Thank you again for listening to us.